This podcast is going to be dropping on the 4th of July. And so I thought I would address something cultural today, but with facts. So I feel sometimes like I have a really unpopular opinion, which is that I feel patriotic. I am a liberal. I am a Democrat. And I feel proud of our country. And you know what? I think it's because of the work that I do. I really and truly believe in our democracy. I don't think I could do the work that I do if I did not. But I also think part of the reason that I believe in democracy is because I'm doing something about it, right? And so by doing something about it, which I mean is reading tax law, seeing the actual fruits of the democratic process, and because I really care about connecting the dots on that work, I also help get people elected that I care about. So I'm the vice chair of my local Democratic Party's precinct. And so I help knock on my neighbors' doors and get out the vote and do things like organize a party so that new people who've moved to the neighborhood will meet the Democrats and feel welcome and know how to do early voting and how North Carolina voting works, right? And I find that by doing that work, it gives me visibility into the good people working hard on the system that we have. I think I see a trend that really scares me, which is people spending a lot of time on social media, especially TikTok, which, let's face it, is owned by China, which is an adversary. And we know that the Chinese government, there is no filter between the government and any corporation that exists in China. And there's absolutely no reason that the Chinese government cannot be tipping the scales inside of TikTok to distribute videos, to produce an algorithm that distributes videos to young people in the US that just make you feel a little shitty about democracy. They're smart, and there's no reason that they wouldn't do that when they have a main line into United States culture. So I think social media is like truly toxic when it comes to building democracy. And I think that actually being involved in the democratic process is life affirming and wonderful. And I'm not here to say it's easy. And I'm not here to say that we always win. But the more people renew their faith and in good faith step into it, the more good people we have involved. And you know what? Good people being involved in democracy is how we preserve and expand and improve our democracy, not by everybody saying, this country sucks, and everybody shitting on it. So here on our nation's birthday, I'm going to be here lonely as a patriotic liberal. And I'm going to give you the facts. I'm going to bring the receipts to tell you why I feel so happy with the progress that we have made. All right. So I hope that you walk away from today's episode feeling good, being willing to wave the flag perhaps, and feeling energized to ask that question that John Kennedy asked. Ask not what my country can do for me, ask what I can do for my country. All right. I really believe in that. So here we go. So first of all, I just want to address the culture. So I think it's really easy to just feel like there was a better time a while ago and that things suck now. But I just want to give a little perspective. I'm a 44-year-old woman, and I have to say that in my observation, the culture in this country has changed dramatically since I was a kid. Like my brother is gay, and when he came out of the closet in probably about 1992, 93, it was a really scary thing to do. Like we thought his life might be threatened. And it was not safe, right? Being gay in this country right now is like kind of a non-issue. And if you're older, you know that. And if you're younger, you might take it for granted, but that is real change for the better. Even my own queerness, I'm a straight passing woman because I'm married to a man, but even my own queerness, I can talk about openly, and it's like, perfectly fine. So just that, like being able to be who you truly are, I think that's a really big deal. And I also just want to reflect, like when you want to just get some proof that the culture has shifted for the better, just watch a movie from the 90s. There is so much sexism, misogyny, racism, homophobia in movies from the 90s. Like it's just, and this is stuff we just watched, right? At the time. It's so evident and obvious how racist, sexist, homophobic those movies are now. Most of them haven't aged well. And it's real proof that the culture around us does not consider those things to be acceptable in a way that, you know, those couple of decades ago they were. So think about that. Think about that. That's real. Okay. So let's bring you, you know, the thing that me, the tax expert, that I can bring to this show today. Let's bring the receipts. I want to talk about, you know, I think I get a sort of different view of our democracy and the progress that our government makes because I have to read the actual bills, right, in order to teach you about how they will affect you in your when it comes to your tax return. So I think it's really easy to think that Congress is dysfunctional and, you know, newspapers sell newspapers. They get clicks by being controversial and triggering your emotions. And the fact is you rarely see headlines about how wonderful things are. And so I just want to give you some of this sunshine that is truly there. True progress, true actual legislation that we have passed. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say the legislation that's passed that I think is really fantastic, for the most part, has been passed by Democrats. And to me, there's no accident that I work for the Democratic Party. I believe in liberal values. And I see what happens, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm being really transparent with you, though, of course, when I do taxes, when I teach taxes, of course, taxes are for everybody, regardless of your party. And I think being nonpartisan is important in that setting, right? But I'm a human. I have opinions, and I have a brain, and I can read legislation and see what's going on. So, but you know, also I want to say that I think culturally, just saying bad things about the other party is, you know, when they pass bad legislation, that's legit. But I'm not going to demonize the other party just like across the board and without receipts, right? And I will certainly be happy to give credit where credit is due when they pass good things. And speaking of that, the Republican Party, along with our Democratic governor here in the state of North Carolina, 10 years after rejecting Medicare expansion, the Republicans just decided, let's do it. And so 10 years later, much to my surprise, the Republican legislature passed Medicare expansion here in the state of North Carolina. And that is truly remarkable because they fought so hard against it 10 years ago. And here we are. We have shifted the dialogue to a point where it just felt acceptable, right? We showed the proof that it works and that the sky would not fall. So I just want to remind you that progress is happening. It does happen. Okay. So one of the things that this is going to be just a very quick and dirty look at some of the legislation that's been passed in just the last couple of years and how incredible and good it's been. I want to talk to you about real progress in the US. So one of the bills, one of the things that happened, it was in one of the COVID acts. I didn't note which one, I'm sorry. Was the expanded child tax credit. This was during COVID and it did expire. So it was passed with a Democratic Congress and president. And when it was in existence, the expanded child tax credit, which brought the tax credit for children from $2,000 with some limits on age to an expanded age limit and $3,000 per kid. It cut child poverty in half in the United States overnight. That is such a big deal. And I just did a client interview, which I will air on the Sunlight podcast. This amazing client of mine, Christina Kent, who is actually an economist who studies tax law and their effects. And she said, and you will hear, that bill, that tax credit that was the law for a couple of years there, it reduced child mistreatment. And so things like kids not sleeping in a proper bed or waiting at bus stops without a real jacket, things like that stopped, because a lot of the maltreatment of children, as my client Christina said, a lot of child maltreatment is simply a function of poverty. It's not intentional, but it's that the family cannot afford a proper bed, cannot afford a proper jacket. So expanding the child tax credit, to me, the fact that it really demonstrably stopped things like that and it cut child poverty in half, that is so remarkable. That is genuine, incredible progress. Now, I will say that the Republican Congress that came in did not renew the law, but we've got elections coming and we could renew it again. We could do it again. So I just want to give you a little piece of hope and maybe something to advocate for. All right. Now, everything else I'm going to talk about is actual legislation that is still, that did get enacted and is still the law. All right. So a couple of things, really high level, the bipartisan infrastructure law. So as enacted, it was a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and it authorizes $108 billion for public transportation. I think that's pretty cool. The Inflation Reduction Act, I did a podcast episode about this, so you can go back in the archives and find that. But the Inflation Reduction Act passed not even a year ago in August 2022. It's the largest climate bill ever passed. It is projected to reduce emissions in the United States by 40% in 7 years by 2030. Think about that for a minute. That is truly incredible. 40% emissions reduction in this country in 7 years by 2030. Wow. So I just want you to soak that in before you talk about not wanting to wave the flag today. Okay. So some other things that it does, that the Inflation Reduction Act, it enacts historic deficit reduction to fight inflation. So yeah, it doesn't just balance the budget, it actually fights the deficit as well, because it had a lot of provisions in it that will be basically net positives to the US economy. It lowers energy costs, increases cleaner production, and reduces carbon emissions. It allows Medicare to negotiate drug prices and caps out-of-pocket costs to $2,000. That's a really big deal. That's also going to reduce the deficit because it saves money for the US government. It lowers ACA healthcare premiums for millions of Americans. It makes the biggest corporations and ultra wealthy pay their fair share. It created the CAMT, which imposes a corporate minimum tax. So it imposes a 15% minimum tax on the adjusted financial statement income of large corporations for taxable years beginning after 2022. The CAMT generally applies to large corporations with average annual financial statement income exceeding $1 billion. So we talk about a lack of tax fairness, but here we have an example of Democrats successfully passing legislation that reduces the deficit by making very, very large corporations pay taxes in a little bit fairer of a way. So yay, right? You might have missed that headline. I didn't see it too much. There are no new taxes on families making $400,000 or less, and no new taxes on small businesses. So again, it's really focused. I have to say this is one of the nicest, most well-crafted pieces of legislation I've ever seen. It is very well structured. So it considers the impact of what it passes. So the Inflation Reduction Act, I'm a huge fan, and I think it does amazing things. So I just want you to celebrate that today. All right. And then one more is the Secure 2.0 Act, also passed by our Democratic Congress. It expands access to retirement accounts. It addresses reasons that people don't contribute, which is a really big deal because a lot of people don't contribute to those wealth building tax sheltered accounts that I teach in Money Boot Camp because they're worried that they might need the money for other things, for emergencies, for buying a house, things like that. So the Secure 2.0 Act really addressed head on those fear issues that people have, those real genuine reasons why people, especially in lower economic income levels, are not contributing to those accounts, which are meant for wealth building. Okay. So that's a really exciting, it's just a really exciting piece of legislation, and it does really practical things to help people more securely put money into their wealth building retirement accounts. So some of the loosened rules it makes on emergency withdrawals to help people make contributions are domestic abuse emergency situation withdrawals. They expanded the capacity for those and the reasons. It also does a really cool thing because a lot of people don't contribute because they have student loans. So the Secure 2.0 Act allows employers to consider student loan payment as elective retirement contributions for the purpose of making employees eligible for matching contributions. So in other words, an employer, so if you have matching, right? If your employer matches your 401k 10%, for example, and you, in theory, because you make, let's say, $50,000, you would be eligible for matching, but you have a $500 student loan payment. So you really don't have enough money to contribute to both, and you have to contribute to the student loan payment. That student loan payment counts as your IRA contribution, or sorry, 401k contribution, even though you're not actually making a 401k contribution, so to make you eligible for the employer match. So you can actually get money from your employer even when you are not putting money into the 401k. So things like that are in the Secure 2.0 Act, and it's just awesome. So I'm going to leave it there. This is really just meant to be some nuggets and some, proof, some real proof of amazing legislation that has been passed recently that I want you to feel really, really good about and really, really proud of. And damn, if you knocked on some doors, you can feel even more ownership. That's the cool thing about being active, right? Of being a good citizen, being active in your own democracy. You get to feel personally invested when things like this happen. Because you know that you had a hand in it, right? All right. So I think I want us all to get off social media for one thing, because it just makes us all feel like shit, including about our country, like makes us want to trash it. And I don't feel that way at all. So I personally take it as my mission in our country and my work to work on building trust, right? Talking to people in real life, live and present, and work on our democracy. So if you happen to be in the Asheville area, I know most of you aren't, but if you happen to be, one of the things me and the local Democrats are working on is a party in Weaver Park on July 30th, 3 p.m. It's an ice cream social. The least exciting of the three speakers is going to be me. Just for a minute, just talking about ways that you could get involved in precinct organizing. But the point is really to meet your neighbors, to build community. If you don't know the rules about early voting, it's going to show you stuff like that. And just you'll learn what precinct you're in, who the leader of that is, and maybe what you could do to help your precinct. So I encourage you to share this show today with a friend who is a real Debbie Downer on democracy, an uncle, a brother, somebody who just needs to hear that good things are actually happening. And the more of us who are working on it, the more good things are capable of happening. It's easy to focus on the bad. There's plenty of bad, sure, always. but real progress is happening. So I encourage you to share this episode with somebody who needs it. And I encourage you to ask that question that John F. Kennedy asked all of us. What can I ask? Not what this country can do for you, ask what you can do for this country. And I will say, a suggestion I have is look up your local smallest unit of organization of your party, right? Is yours a precinct system? If you're in North Carolina, or if you're in Buncombe County like me, then it is. But states are different. The parties organize differently in different places. So you may need to just do 5 minutes of Google research, find out about your precinct, find about the organizer, and call that person. Send an email to your local leader of your party and ask them how you can get involved. You will be absolutely shocked at how much there is to be done, especially about a year out from a presidential election. This is the time for grassroots network building. This is the time. So, and when you organize, when you help people meet each other, when you help people organize for democracy, you have so much more power than one vote, so much more. And it really builds your own faith in your democracy. I personally feel good about our country, feel good about our democracy because I work on it, because I'm working on it, and because I get to meet the other people who are working on it. And seeing them, I tell you, it gives me faith. So get connected to your community, build relationships, build trust, feel good. It's the antidote. It's the antidote, and it's the way to feel great about your country again. So on the 4th of July, I will say, Happy Independence Day. Fuck the monarchy. Remember, that's what we fought that war over. Our anti-elitist country. Let's keep it that way. Yeah, I believe in those original principles. I'm not here to say our country is not deeply, deeply flawed, and even built on an original sin of slavery. It always needs fixing, and it needs you to help. So thanks so much for listening today. Happy 4th of July. I hope you go eat a piece of pie, watch some fireworks, play with your kids. And then I hope you will get involved. Call your local precinct vice chair. And if you're in Asheville on 3 p.m. on the 30th of July, I'll see you in Weaver Park for some ice cream and meeting our local Democrats. All right. Take care, everybody. Great to talk to you. Bye.